Dolly friends. This is Kitty.
And I'm Totty.
And welcome to Little Bottle Nursery. Our channel is dedicated to our love of dolls and creating fun and positivity in the doll hobby. So stick around and have some dolly fun. Hi Dolly friends. Welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, my name is Kitty. And with my daughter Totty, we are a doll collecting duo from Australia. Today, I've been tasked with changing the outfits on some of Totty's dolls. She's busy at troop dance practice today. And then I'm going to have a chat about the response to our 3-part video series about manufacturing in China. Plus, I will discuss some tips with our viewers as to how you can go about researching facts. And then I'll finish with addressing manufacturing supply chain risks. So grab a cup of tea, Dolly friends, and stay for a while because I'd love to have a chat with you all. So the 3 dollies that we have here today, this is Charlotte, Ali and Genevieve. These are both Gott's dolls. This one's exclusive to Pottery Barn. And we've got a little Premi reborn doll. So that's who I'll be doing the outfit changes on today. So we want to start off by saying a really big thank you to all our awesome viewers who left the most encouraging comments on our channel after we recently uploaded our 3-part series about manufacturing in China. We are so pleased to hear that you found the information contained in those videos helpful, and we want to say a big hello. Hi everyone to all our new subscribers, and thank you for joining our channel. We are so happy that you've become a part of the Little Wattle Nursery family. About 99.9% of the feedback from our 3-part video series has been super positive, which is fantastic. For our new viewers here today, the goal of our 3-part series was to educate viewers about some of the pitfalls or risks of manufacturing in China and what types of measures can be put in place to reduce the risks associated with those issues. I discussed the importance of how intellectual property and contracts are absolutely essential to protect an individual's work when they manufacture in China. Although there is no 100% way of stopping a product from being copied, there are a number of different measures that can be implemented to considerably reduce the risks. In our 3-part series, the information provided addressed how individuals can be proactive in protecting their products to reduce the risks of their products being copied when they manufacture in China. It's been wonderful to have a few sculptors reach out to our channel to thank us for providing the information, and it has been super encouraging to have some legal and business professionals contact us to congratulate us on our video series, who agree that not very many consumers know the legal end about how manufacturing works and how important it is for individuals to protect all aspects of their work before sending it off to be mass produced by a manufacturer in a foreign country. Today, I'm going to address the 0.1% that wasn't positive because it's important to nip that kind of nonsense in the bud. If there's one thing I've learned from certain areas within the doll community is that there are far too many individuals who simply lack the capacity of doing a little bit of basic research on a topic. Unfortunately, they are like sheep and believe all sorts of nonsense. We actually addressed this very issue in our previous video about how easy it is to do your own research, and there's a link in the description box if you're interested in checking that video out. So I want to start by really encouraging viewers to do your own research if you are considering manufacturing in China. Intellectual property is a private property right, so individuals are responsible for monitoring and enforcing their IP through the correct channels. The internet is an information highway, and there is an enormous amount of useful information for anyone to access about this topic. All this useful public information is readily available to educate individuals and business owners about the complexities of intellectual property and manufacturing in China. It's so simple to find this information online. So for those who are thinking about manufacturing in China, there really is no excuse for not doing some research. I've actually included some useful links in the description box to get you started. A really good starting point are the various government agencies around the world who are responsible for administering intellectual property in your own country. In my country, it's IP Australia. There are also many leading experts in this field who have published an enormous amount of information online about how individuals can protect their intellectual property when manufacturing in a foreign country like China. So, for example, this article here, it wasn't difficult to find online, the 3 keys to protecting your intellectual property in China and internationally, and it's a very up-to-date document. It's been written by Dan Harris, and he is a leading legal expert on doing business in China. He has a very famous blog that's very highly regarded in the law community called the China Blog. And just going through, very straightforward. The first key is to have a good partner. I've spoken about this in previous videos about doing things like due diligence, and you can see down here, due diligence. It's not rocket science. The second key is having a good contract with anyone whom you reveal your IP to. And here we go, NNN agreements. I've spoken about that before. Again, not rocket science. The third key is good IP registrations, and they're suggesting a combination of trademarks, copyrights, and patents. And I've spoken about this extensively. So the information is very easy to find online and written in a way that it's very understandable for the average person. But most importantly, if you're thinking about manufacturing in China, the best advice is to not listen to gossip from ill-informed individuals in the community. Do your own research. It's free and easy. Compile a list of questions and concerns, and then go speak with a legal professional, one who specialises in both intellectual property and international law. Look for a legal firm who has a wealth of experience preparing contracts with Chinese manufacturers and is well versed on the various risks associated with doing business in China. You do not need to be a business or legal expert to understand the majority of information published online about manufacturing in China. Many government agencies and legal experts from around the world publish practical information to assist anyone thinking about manufacturing in China. This information is designed to give you a broad understanding of the various risks associated with manufacturing in China and is a really good starting point to gather information and write a list of questions or concerns to ask a legal professional. So there's really no excuse for not knowing the basics. So this is part 4 of our video series. Before I discuss the topics previously mentioned, I will first briefly fill in any of our new viewers here today who may not have seen our 3-part series and explain how this video series all came about. So for those who are new here today, we were both surprised and concerned after recently seeing some sculpt artists of reborn kits very openly and publicly claiming that they have never put any contracts in place with their factory when they've manufactured their kits. Never. Yeah, I know, right. A lot of you are already thinking to yourself how utterly shocking this is. And it is shocking because who in their right mind would manufacture anywhere in the world, let alone China, without having contracts in place with their manufacturer? What a recipe for disaster. And then there is this uproar when various individuals have their work copied. It's like, ding dong, hello, are the lights on and nobody is home? Recently, there were also comments made publicly online about how many artists use the same manufacturer and that the majority of the sculpt artists using this manufacturer had had their kits copied at least once. Ding dong, another red flag. So it was really obvious to me that there are some clueless souls desperately needing some guidance. So I created a helpful 3-part video series that identifies some of the risks or pitfalls of manufacturing in China and some effective ways to reduce those risks. So after our 3-part video series aired, one particular sculpt artist, they appear to have taken issue with the factual content contained in our videos and made some rather clueless comments online. So I'll pop up on screen the comments made by that sculpt artist. As you can see, their reactive, rude comments are full of arrogance and sarcasm. Unfortunately, this is not the first time I've seen this silly type of nonsense that comes from certain individuals from that community. So for the rest of this video, I will clarify some points about the manufacturing supply chain, specifically risks both inside the supply chain and outside the supply chain. So let's take a look at this sculpt artist's comment. Could somebody please help me understand why on earth would sculptors have contracts with factories in China that they do not do business with? The answer is very simple. You do not need contracts with factories that you do not do business with. But guess what? If you plan to manufacture your products in China, you do need to register your intellectual property in China and have the appropriate contract agreements in place with your factory to protect your intellectual property so that your product idea does not get leaked, copied or sold from within your supply chain to outside your supply chain. Even when individuals are working with Chinese factories whom they believe are operating their businesses with honesty and integrity, it doesn't automatically mean that their factories, partner factories or subcontractors are. And unless there are strong contracts in place to protect the individual's intellectual property, forbidding either their manufacturer or their partner factories or subcontractors from copying or selling their product idea or molds, then they can very easily fall into the hands of those outside an individual's supply chain. I am now going to discuss some common examples of how an individual's product can get leaked or copied from inside their supply chain to third parties outside their supply chain. The first way is when an overseas factory intentionally wants to appropriate a product idea from a foreign client, so they want to appropriate the IP, and they will leak the information to a related third-party company. It is common for many separate manufacturing companies in China to be a part of a large group company owned by either a single shareholder or a group shareholder. The client's product gets leaked to a different company outside the supply chain that is part of this larger group company. This company has no contracts with the manufacturer that makes the product. So this is one of the loopholes in China, because under Chinese law, this makes the manufacturer who is making the product for their client free of liability, because they're not the offending manufacturer copying the product. It's the other one that's in this parent company. Chinese factory employees have been well known to take product ideas. What it does, it enables them to start their own factory rather than being a poorly paid employee. Not only have factory employees been known to take product designs, but they'll also take customer lists, and then they'll sell their product 30% below the individual's wholesale price. Individuals are often unaware that there can be many subcontractors involved in the manufacturing process of their products, especially if the product is quite complex to make. For example, a manufacturer may need to hire a third-party factory or factories to make tools and mouldings for the product. And to do this, they need to disclose their clients' confidential information or product design details. Unfortunately, it is well known, it's a well-known common practice in China that these mould and tooling shops, they will either use the individual's product design themselves or they sell it on to a third party. In addition, it is quite a common practice in China that if a manufacturer has too much work, it'll just subcontract its excess work to another factory, who will either copy the work for themselves or they'll sell it to third parties outside the supply chain. This is why contracts are so important in China. It's not just to protect the individual from their manufacturing supply chain, but also from all the third parties outside their supply chain. Dan Harris from Harris Bricken Law Firm and the author of the China blog has written an excellent article about manufacturing leaks, and I've included a link in the description box below. I encourage viewers to take a look at this article because it appears many people in the community, like that sculptor who made those comments, are confused about how supply chain leakages can occur when in fact it's actually quite straightforward and easy to understand. According to his article, Mr. Harris's law firm uses quite a robust approach to reduce the risks associated with supply chain leaks. He advises in the article that the firm's common approach is to make the factory liable for all the damages caused to their client due to confidential information being misused. For example, if the subcontractor steals the information, the factory is liable. If the mould or toolings shop steals the information, the factory is liable, etc. This gives the factory the flexibility of getting the job completed, but also giving them a very strong incentive to impose its own mechanisms to maintain confidentiality of their clients' product information. Mr. Harris states that Chinese factories have often complained about the load of their liability, and his law firm's frank response is, if you cannot trust the person to whom you disclose our client's product information to, then you should not be making the disclosure. He claims that his law firm's record of getting these contract agreements signed are shockingly good. So I'm now going to address the risks both inside the supply chain and outside the supply chain to demonstrate why intellectual property and contracts play such a key role for both. And I'm going to do it by posing a series of questions. There are two ways that a genuine product can be copied. The first risk is from within the supply chain, and the second risk is outside the supply chain. I will start with the first risk from within a supply chain. This can happen when a client's manufacturer, so their factory, or their factory's partner factories or their subcontractors who may or may not be in partnership with the client's manufacturer, copies the client's work. They may also sell the individual's surplus or second stock, or use the individual's product moulds to make their own products. They may even modify or duplicate the individual's moulds, or they may accidentally leak or purposely share confidential information about the individual's product, or sell the individual's moulds onto third parties either inside the supply chain or outside the supply chain. As discussed earlier in this video, this is a well-known, well-documented, massive problem in China in recent years. The unfortunate reality is that it is not uncommon for Chinese manufacturing companies to be their clients' toughest competitor. In addition to this, many breaches and leaks of confidential information commonly occur through a factory's partner factories or subcontractors exploiting their clients' confidential information to those outside the supply chain. Some individuals may argue that their factory would never act in such a dishonest way, but if individuals do not have the relevant contract agreements in place with their manufacturer that forbids them or their partner factories or subcontractors from sharing, copying or selling their products, then the reality is an individual's work can end up being leaked, shared or sold to companies outside their supply chain. Once that occurs, it is even more difficult for the individual to follow up on infringements because their product is being copied on a mass-produced scale from various different companies who have got their hands on the product specifications. When the client's factory or their factory's partner factories or subcontractors or anyone outside the supply chain, such as third parties who have gained access to the client's design specifications or moulds, when they copy the individual's product, the product is generally very good quality, and it is often difficult for consumers to tell the difference between the genuine and the copy. And this is most often because the factory in question is using the individual's design specifications, templates, or moulds to manufacture their products. So the following series of questions are very relevant to anyone planning to manufacture in a foreign country like China. It doesn't matter what type of product an individual is planning to manufacture, these questions are applicable to anyone. These questions will help identify which areas are the greatest risk for the individual. The questions provide a yes or no answer. So let's begin. Have you engaged an experienced law firm to assist you with globally protecting your intellectual property? Have you globally registered your intellectual property when required? This includes in your own country, in the country you manufacture in, and the countries you are selling your products in. To have your copyright enforceable in China, have you registered your copyright in China with the CPCC under their optional system prior to the commencement of engaging with Chinese manufacturers? Have you engaged a law firm to conduct due diligence on potential Chinese factories who can properly investigate, analyse and evaluate the business transaction risks prior to you selecting a manufacturer to hand over your product idea to? Did you use effective legal tools such as an NNN agreement for doing research, obtaining general quotes, and initiating early negotiations with Chinese manufacturers? Before you hand over any specific design details of your product to your chosen factory, do you have all the appropriate intellectual property registered in China and have the relevant signed contracts in dual languages, say in English and Chinese, and governed by Chinese law to protect the intellectual property of your final product? Do you know if your manufacturer has partner factories or subcontractors who are responsible for completing some of the production work on your manufacturer's behalf? This can include making the tools or production moulds or other logistical requirements, such as assembling products for distribution or transport. If they do you have an agreement in place with your factory, making them liable if the actions of these companies breach the confidentiality agreement in contract arrangements? Do you have an NNN agreement with your factory that has suitable provisions to safeguard your intellectual property? Have you approved every single partner factory or subcontractors your factory has? And has your factory enforced their partner factories or all of their subcontractors to sign the NNN agreement? Or alternatively, if this is not practical, do you have provisions in your NNN agreement making your factory liable if the actions of their partner companies or subcontractors breach the provisions in the contract and leak confidential information about your product? During the product development stage, do you have a product agreement that states you own the intellectual property in full, so 100% of the final product to be manufactured in China? For example, if your factory has offered to incur all production costs, which includes making the moulds and toolings required to manufacture your product, do you have contracts stating that you own 100% of the intellectual property of the final product? Do you have a written contract or anything else in writing forbidding your Chinese manufacturer from copying or selling your products? For example, do you have provisions set out in a manufacturing agreement with your factory that prevents your factory, their partner factories or subcontractors from sharing, selling or copying your products? If this is not practical for everyone to sign contracts, do you have damages provisions included in your contract with substantial financial penalties that make your factory liable should their partner factories or subcontractors not comply with the terms of the contract? Where there is a possibility, have you considered compartmentalising the production, assembly processes and the equipment so that it makes it more difficult for your product to be copied? Have you incorporated any specialised technologies or techniques into your product so that it's more difficult to duplicate your product and enable customers to easily verify whether the products they are purchasing are genuine? Do you regularly visit your factory, or have you engaged a representative to physically check your manufacturer's premises to ensure that they are complying with the contract agreements and are not making extra products? Has your factory returned your moulds to you after the completion of production? If not, has the inspector officially wrapped your moulds with proprietary adhesive tape and sealed with a proprietary sticker to prevent them from being used? And has the inspector sent photographic or video evidence to prove this to you? Does your manufacturer dispose of any moulds during the product development stage that are not used in the final production? If so, do they dispose of those moulds properly so they cannot be used by a third party from either inside or outside the supply chain? Do you have a manufacturing agreement or a mould agreement that forbids your factory, their partner factories or subcontractors from either using, sharing or selling your moulds to third parties who may be either inside your supply chain or outside your supply chain, either during or after production has ceased? Have you recorded your IP rights with Chinese customs to assist them with seizing infringing goods? And have you engaged a specialist online brand protection service provider to identify and remove copy products from online platforms? Evidence requirements for online infringements are strict, particularly with Chinese e-commerce platforms. Do you have the appropriate official Chinese documentation to prove that you are the owner of the intellectual property that has been infringed? If you have answered no to any of these questions, they are all red flags that should be proactively addressed to minimise the risk of having your work legally copied. That's right, without having the appropriate intellectual property registered in China and relevant contract agreements in place with your manufacturer, your work can be legally copied in China. International legal expert Dan Harris has published many articles on this topic that are super easy to understand, and I have included links in the description box below and encourage you to check them out. In one of his articles, he recommends, where possible, that individuals avoid agreeing to their manufacturer's usage of any subcontractors, as this is one of the most common ways that an individual's confidential information about their intellectual property, their product, is misused and exploited and ends up outside the supply chain. So, moving on to the second way a genuine product can be copied, which comes from outside the supply chain. And there are two ways this can happen. The first risk is how I discussed before, when the manufacturer, their partner factories or subcontractors leaks or sells the client's product idea to third parties outside the supply chain. And once the product is outside the supply chain, it's a free-for-all for anyone who can get their hands on the product and copy it. When this happens, chasing up on infringements becomes extremely difficult for the individual because their product is being copied on a mass-produced scale. The second risk is simply when competitors see and learn about popular products by researching online, and they may have seen it on an online platform like Facebook, Instagram, or on Kickstarter. Competitors will copy the product, potentially using reverse engineering, and produce their own version of the product under their own brand name. It is not uncommon for this type of product to be inferior in quality in comparison to the original, which makes it much easier for consumers to spot the difference between the genuine and the copy. Now, let's pose some relevant questions that apply outside the supply chain. Have you globally protected your intellectual property? Have you registered your intellectual property, including copyrights, designs, or trademarks, in your own country, in the country where you manufacture, and in the countries you sell your products if and when required? Do you have provisions set out in contract agreements with your factory that prevents either your factory, their partner factories, or subcontractors from sharing, selling, or copying your products to third parties? who are outside your supply chain. For example, do you have provisions in an NNN agreement making your factory liable if the actions of their partner companies or subcontractors breach the provisions in the contract and leak confidential information about your product? Do you keep your product design confidential from the public until the product is released onto the market for sale? This includes not sharing any design specification details, such as work in progress photos on social media. Have you incorporated traceable features into your products that allows consumers to easily verify whether the product is genuine? One such example is a copy-proof QR code, which can be printed into a product's packaging to allow consumers to easily verify on their mobile phone if a product is genuine. Have you put extra effort into branding recognition and marketing investment to build a loyal customer base that relates to your trademark and a certain level of quality? Do you offer value to your customers, such as special perks, for purchasing through you instead of Chinese companies who cannot provide this? Things like club benefits, specials, warranty, education, or even a less expensive option in your product line. Do you engage a specialist online brand protection service provider to monitor and remove copy products across multiple online platforms? So once again, if you've answered no to any of these questions, these are red flags that need addressing. In our 3-part video series, there is a lot more information explaining about how certain measures reduce the risks of products being copied, so please refer to those videos for further information. The only further point to make on this topic is that Chinese manufacturers who genuinely conduct themselves in a professional manner with honesty and integrity, they will have no issue with signing an NNN or manufacturing agreement with their clients so that their client's intellectual property is protected. Furthermore, if the manufacturer is dealing with honest, reputable and reliable partner factories and subcontractors, they will see no issue with signing a contract that makes them financially liable should their partner factories or subcontractors leak or sell their clients' product details to third parties either inside or outside the supply chain. On the other hand, if manufacturers refuse to sign this type of agreement with those kinds of provisions, then this is a really big red flag. Some individuals may think that these requirements in China are extreme, unnecessary or unfair and consider that their work has been stolen, but the reality is intellectual property registrations and contract requirements are simply the rules of doing business when manufacturing in China. If individuals choose to do business in China because of the many financial benefits such as really low manufacturing costs, then they need to respect and comply with the laws that are in place in the foreign country that they are conducting their business in. When individuals are having their products manufactured in China, they are conducting business. Individuals who fail to register their intellectual property in China and do not have the appropriate contract agreements in place with their manufacturer put themselves at a much higher risk of having their intellectual property for their product either leaked, copied or shared by someone inside their supply chain to those outside the supply chain. I don't know what fantasy world people are living in. An individual's Chinese factory or their partner factories or subcontractors or any other company who has asserted power over the individual's intellectual property either inside or outside the supply chain, they are not going to tap that individual on the shoulder and openly admit to what they're doing. If they believe the Chinese courts will not recognise the individual's intellectual property or contracts in China, they will simply manufacture and sell the products as they please. Aww, baby Genevieve and Ali look so adorable, dressed up in their new clothes. So that's a wrap on part 4, Dolly friends. Thank you so much for being here today. If you enjoyed today's video, please give it a like because it really helps us out. And if you're new here today, we would love it if you subscribe to our channel. We look forward to seeing you for part 5, where you will see our Dolly Charlotte, dressed in her new outfit, and I will discuss 3 topics about manufacturing in China. The first topic, I will discuss the business culture in China. The second topic is pursuing infringements in China versus your own country, the pros and cons. You are going to be really surprised about some of the information about foreign judgments, so you will not want to miss out on that. And the third topic, I will address being proactive versus being reactive and identify how individuals benefit from proactively managing their intellectual property. We are looking forward to seeing you in our next video, so stay tuned. So take care, everyone. Love to you all. Bye, everyone. Bye for now.